Welcome to episode 46 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would really appreciate it if you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is dropping some new content. All right, everybody. As of Monday, December 20th, 2021, there really hasn't been any hockey games. It has not been good in the NHL. COVID is running through the league at this point, not just the NHL. You go through every league, the NBA, the NFL. Games are getting postponed left, right, and center. Yeah. Everyone's entering protocol. The Leafs haven't played since Tuesday, December 14th, but they currently sit second in the Atlantic Division at 28-2. So we are going to go over the week that was for the Toronto Maple Leafs, that one game, and we're going to get into some other topics as well, talking about some awards futures, some Stanley Cup futures. We're going to talk about some contenders and pretenders. It's going to be a good podcast, so please stay tuned. But now it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, buddy?
Doing very well, Anthony Bruno. As always, happy to be here. The world is back in shambles, but we're recording a podcast, so smiles all around. Episode 46. Shout out goes to Roman Polak.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a blast from the past, eh? So I'll ask you this question, Bruno. When we look back at Roman Polak's times, or I should say transactions in and out of the Toronto Maple Leafs, should we be disappointed that we traded away Carl Gunnarsson to get him, or be happy that we received 2 second-round picks from the San Jose Sharks for him?
Absolutely thrilled, over the moon that we got 2 picks from the Sharks for Roman Polak.
So you're okay losing Gunnarsson because you got 2 second round picks?
I'm totally fine with that. I mean, even though I thought Polak was just bad.
No, he's horrible.
I mean, Babcock loved him. Babcock thought he was like a Norris Trophy caliber.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Which was bizarre. But yeah, thank God the Leafs got a couple of picks for that guy.
Yeah. Poor Roman. Poor
Roman Polak. No, that's wow. I was not expecting the Roman Polak shout out.
Well, number 46 isn't exactly historically relevant with the Toronto Maple Leafs, or probably any hockey team for that matter. Like, who's the greatest 46 in the history of the NHL? We'll talk about that next show.
I cannot think of that at all. So yeah, fair enough, man. Roman Polak it is. All right, Lepore, let's get straight into the podcast here.
Yeah.
So as I already mentioned, the Leafs only playing 1 game this past week, and it was a great one because they went into Edmonton and smashed the Oilers 5-1. And Lepore, I was in Edmonton at Rogers Place watching this game. So for those of you who don't know, I was in the house in Edmonton. I flew there with Sportsnet. I recently started working with the Sportsnet Bets crew. Awesome group of people. And we were actually at Rogers Place in Edmonton watching this Leafs Oilers game. And Lepore, it was just absolutely glorious.
I'm sure it was.
Sitting there watching the Leafs just pump this team, watching Austin Matthews score a couple of goals. And you know what, Lepore? Listen, the game was fantastic, but just talking about the arena for a second, that's a really nice arena.
Wow, they got some wealth there with their ownership group there, so not shocking.
Yeah, I was surprised, man. Like, it's a beautiful arena, great building, great atmosphere, and there were a ton of Leaf fans there.
I was gonna say, it almost there's Leafs fans everywhere, but it even seemed more than normal. It seemed like the place was like half in blue.
Oh, it was insane. There were, I believe I was counting, there was at least 2 or 3 Go Leafs Go chants throughout the game, and it was loud, man. I don't know if you could hear it through the television.
Yeah, oh, you could hear it, yeah.
But holy, and every time the Leafs scored, yeah, it's like you said, man, half the building got up to cheer when the Leafs scored.
Yeah, you even
So,
heard like the soup, like after big saves.
oh yeah,
Like
there was a
something.
bunch of soup chants after he was making some big saves. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. People always say the Leafs travel well, but until you're actually in that atmosphere, and I know you know how it is because you've been to a lot of Leafs Senators games in Ottawa,
One or two.
but to see it in Edmonton, I was pleasantly surprised by the turnout from Leaf fans, and it was fantastic atmosphere.
Yeah, a win always makes it better too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Leaf fans were buzzing on Tuesday night in Edmonton. It was incredible. Just to get into the game, I mean, like I said, Austin Matthews scored a couple goals. He's up to 20 goals in 27 games. Three other Leafs goals coming from Simmons, Riley, and Brody. Campbell made 35 saves in the win. That was the Oilers' sixth loss in a row.
Oof.
They have since won 2 games since
Mhm.
that losing skid. But yeah, I mean, the Leafs were awesome. McDavid and Draisaitl held off the score sheet for a second straight game. I mean, the Leafs put on a clinic, and it was kind of reminding me of last year when the Leafs went. It was 6-1-2 in 9 games against the Oilers. So they're now 7-1-2 in their last 10 games against Edmonton. So Lepore, give me your take on the one game of the week for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Let's stretch this one out because it was the only game. To your point about Toronto's success versus the Oilers, they said it at the end. The Leafs are 9-0-1 at Rexall. I mean, new building. They've played 10 times there. Unreal record, right? It's been a decent team. The game started the first period was kind of uneventful, but there was a chance about midway through. Draisaitl missed a wide open net. I don't know where you were. I don't know where you were sitting.
I was sitting right. I was sitting on that side of the ice, like behind the Leafs net. We were about like 20 rows up.
Yeah. So I was like one of those things where that goes in. How I would say like the game flips on his head when we look back at the result. Leafs, the best chance of the period came from Willie. It was some good work by Kasha to get it through to him, but Willie didn't have a lot of real estate and shot it over. But late in the period, as you mentioned, superhero Austin Matthews bangs in a power play goal. 13 goals in his last 10 games. Anthony Bruno. Remember that slow start. Remember that slow start?
It is long gone. That slow start.
He's scoring for fun. I saw someone the other day, like side note. So he had that hat trick against Columbus, and they put for auction the gloves he wore, the stick he used, and all 3 pucks. The guy paid, to be honest, I don't know if you should think it's a big amount. The guy paid 14 grand.
Okay.
Yeah, not cheap, but I mean, like, it's one of those things. I think people are investing in Matthew stuff because the idea of like if he becomes the Leafs all-time goal scorer, like it's only going to go up, right?
Oh yeah, especially if he stays in Toronto, and like you fast forward 10, 15 years from now, I'd be stunned if he's not like one of the best goal scorers, at least of this generation.
Yeah.
Right. He could be one of the all-time greats. I mean, just in terms of a goal, from a goal scoring perspective. I don't want to get too carried away and for Leafs haters to start yelling at me and stuff, but I would not be stunned at all if this dude goes down as one of the greatest goal scorers in league history based on how he started his career.
100%. And speaking of a player who very well may go down as one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, we look at the current race, Bruno, for the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy as you see it now, and the guys who are around him and the starts they've had. We're a third way through the year. Well, who knows with this pandemic going on, but as it stands now, how confident are you that Austin Matthews can keep his hands on that award? Because we all know he won it last year.
I'm very confident, Lepore.
Okay.
I'm very confident, and I think he wants to go back to back. And he's gotten screwed over, quite frankly, the last few seasons because he would have hit 50 goals in the first COVID year.
Yeah,
I believe he finished with 47, and he finished 1 goal off the Rocket. It was Pasternak and Ovechkin.
Was it 1 goal? I don't remember that. It was that close.
It was one. I think he was 1 goal behind Pasternak and Ovechkin, who had 48 goals that season. So obviously the season ended after 70 games and they handed out all the awards at that point. So he finishes 1 goal back, would have hit 50 that year. And then you go to last season, scores 41 goals in 56 games. He was basically scoring at like a 65 goal clip.
Yeah, he was in around 60. He was in around 65 like all season was his pace.
And then, like you mentioned, Lepore, he gets off to a slow start this year. And people are thinking, oh man, the wrist is hurting him. Is he going to be able to turn into the Austin Matthews we've seen over the last few seasons? And people were, a little bit concerned, even though it's Austin Matthews. And then, oh my goodness, this tear that he's been on. 13 goals in the last 10 games, up to 20 goals in 27 games this season. And just looking at the odds right now, courtesy of my bookie.
Yes.
Austin Matthews is plus 370. He is second behind Leon Draisaitl in odds at plus 370 to win the Rocket Richard this season. And I know that now there's another stoppage, and who knows how that's going to affect things. And guys might be getting out of their rhythm a little bit with the Leafs, having all team activities postponed at least through December 26th. But Lepore, I'm confident, man. I think he has a real shot to go back to back here. And I think I would be betting on Austin. If you had to choose between Draisaitl, Matthews, and McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews, and Ovechkin, right, I meant to say, to win the Rocket Richard, who would you take at this point?
Well, I assumed Ovechkin was third. So you said Matthews is at like 375.
Yeah, and Ovechkin is at plus 570.
I think that one's the bet. Like if we're talking about the straight bet, like Ovechkin at almost 6 times your money, like the tear he's been on, like the confidence he's playing with, like I think that would be the bet. But all things being even, that's tough, man. That's tough. I think fuck it. Also, I'd go Matthews. Like I would, just because again, the slow start, he's firing on all cylinders now. He scores goals so many different ways. I really do think this, and like people would go crazy. I think he's the best goal scorer that I've ever seen. Like I should say ever seen, but like post lockout, like I'll say it with Ovechkin. Now early in his career, yeah, Ovechkin scored a lot of different ways, but let's face it, like now every goal is the same. It's that shot from the left, like every time, and it boggles my mind that teams can't stop it. Like it's, what they're doing every time. Power play, it's coming, slapper. But like when I watch Matthews and his ability to score goals, power play, even strength, like we saw his goal, his 2 goals the other day, like one on the power play when he like bangs it in, and then another one where it's an absolute rifle of a shot. We've also seen him score on the one-timer, score with zone possession, score and goals on the rush. No, and like to my point, the guys, it's kind of funny how hockey works. Like the guys who are considered the best goal scorers, like pure goal scorers, don't necessarily always score the most goals. Like if that makes sense. Like you always hear like, oh, Bossy is the greatest goal scorer of all time. And Mike Bossy's fucking amazing. And I love Mike Bossy. But then you're looking like, well, Gretzky scored way more goals. So why is it not Gretzky? And to that point, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like Ovechkin may score more goals, but Matthews to me is the better pure goal scorer in the way that he scores different ways, different situations. And for that reason, and because of his age and the timing, like I would go with him. Like all things being even, I would go with him right now to take it.
Yeah, I like Matthews as well. McDavid is also a great bet. I mean,
how far behind is he?
He's plus 570.
Okay.
To win the Rocket.
And how many goals does he have?
He's got 22 goals, I believe, right now.
Really, they give you those odds then?
I know that's the thing, right? He's ahead of Matthews right now, but he's below him in the odds to win the Rocket Richard.
It kind of goes to my point, like how like hockey's always looked at, where it's like McDavid has more goals, but I think most people would agree, like, well, Matthews is the better goal scorer, right? Just
yeah, I agree. I think Matthews scores goals in more ways than Ovechkin does. Just to piggyback off of your point, and looking at the stats, Lepore, isn't it fitting that those 3 guys are top 3 in the race for the Rocket Richard? Because since Matthews entered the league in 2016, 2017, he leads the NHL in goals per game at 0.61 goals per game. Second on that list is Ovechkin at 0.58, and Draisaitl is third at 0.51. And just in terms of pure goals, they're also 1, 2, 3. Ovechkin's actually first. So even though Matthews leads in goals per game, he's actually played about 25, 30 less games than Ovechkin. So Ovechkin's got 227, Matthews 219, and Draisaitl 201. They're the only three guys who have scored over 200 goals since Matthews' rookie season.
Yeah. So to the point I made, again, I'm sure people freaked out. Like my take that, and again, it came out like best goal scorer I've ever seen. I was more referring to like post-lockout era, that I very well might put him in the category of the best one, like the best goal scorer I've seen in the post-lockout. He's been in the league. This is sixth year in the league, and he scores more goals per game than anyone else. So it's not a hot take.
No, it's not a hot take at this point. Like Matthews, I think he's the best goal scorer in the world. And I know he's third right now, just in terms of pure goals this season. But you just look at the numbers since he entered the league, the ways that he's able to score goals. I mean, this dude he's on another tier. And listen, it's hard to say that when Ovechkin is probably going to go down as the greatest, goal scorer of all time. Just when he eventually passes your boy Wayne Gretzky, Lepore.
Dude, that's a podcast. That's a podcast on its own, Bruno.
That is a podcast in itself. But I still think I think Matthews is better. I really do. And who knows if he's ever going to hit those numbers. Like, is Matthews ever going to get to 700 goals, 800 goals? I mean, that's very much in question, just in terms of, I mean, even up to this point in his career, he hasn't played full seasons every year, right? He's had some injury issues here and there, but just in terms of pure goal scoring talent, Matthews, I think is the best in the world right now. Is there anyone else you think you'd bet on for the Rocket, Lepore, at this point? No. Like, would you sprinkle money on Connor McDavid?
I would say McDavid. Like, I wouldn't leave the top 3 or 4, like from a bet standpoint. It's not like the other like traditional guys, I'll say it, like haven't had the best starts. Like, for example, Pasternak, we said he won a couple of years ago. He had a rough start. I'm trying to think of other guys, like who other guys who've like won recently besides those. But I'm just looking at the leaderboard right now, man. There's really not a whole lot of guys that I would throw money on. Like right now, Chris Kreider is 4th in the league in goals with 18 goals. Like I am not touching Chris Kreider.
He
was on a crazy tear
to win the Rocky Richard. And Kyle Connor also has 18 goals. I mean, he's an interesting guy. He's, I believe, a 3-time 30-goal scorer. I believe his career high is like 37 or 38.
You get crazy odds on a guy like that.
Yeah, his career high is 38. So I'm not totally interested in a Kyle Connor bet. It's going to be one of those 3. Draisaitl, Ovechkin, Matthews, and McDavid sitting at 17. I don't think anyone would be surprised if McDavid at one point just says, you know what?
Yeah.
Screw it. I'm just going to score like 55 this season.
Remember the year Sid did that?
Yeah.
When he just
season.
He just decided like, I'm going to be a goal scorer this year, and just scored it well and won the Rocket. It's weird to think of Sid winning the Rocket, to be fair.
Oh, 100%. How we see him as viewed as a playmaker. It's the same thing with McDavid, right? Like huge point totals, but most of their points coming from assists. Mm-hmm. And then when you see Sid bury 50, you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize he had this in him. And I view McDavid in the same light. Like I would not be surprised if he has a 50 or 60 goal season in him just because he's Connor McDavid.
Yeah. The things with these players too, like versus the other guys, like they just get so hot. Like we talk about like Matthews having like 13 goals in 10 games. Like Connor McDavid can have like 5 goals in 2 games. Like you're not shocked. Like Ovechkin, you're not shocked. They're just incredible goal scorers. So that's why like they're on another planet. Like once you leave those top 3 or 4, like to your point about like the betting, like nah, you're getting really thin.
Yeah, 100%.
Shall we move on in the game?
Yeah, let's move on, Lepore.
Yeah, we got distracted by the greatest goal scorer of all time. Forgive us, everyone. Second period. Actually, the Leafs were shit in this period. The Leafs had a really, really bad period in the second versus Edmonton. They were outshot 15-7. Campbell played well, as we mentioned earlier. There was the soups in Edmonton. That was awesome to hear. But Wayne Train, midway through the period, was able to put the Leafs up by 2. He banged and crashed one in. And then with 5 minutes left in the second, Brody took a shot from the point that actually went off McDavid's stick through a crowd and beat the goalie. So 3-0 Leafs going into the third. Early, huge save from Jack Campbell. Puck came out in front. He spread his body, was able to keep it out to keep the Leafs up by 3. But the Oilers got a goal from their fourth line. It was Seaver who scored his first goal of the season to make it 3-1. just to make us a tad nervous. But when you need a hero, you get Willie Nylander, who made a great move, went wide behind the net, fed Morgan Riley, who's been on absolute fire since he signed that deal. I saw somewhere he's pretty well been a point a game since he signed his extension with the Leafs. So Leafs up 4-1 at that point. 3 minutes left. Matthews got his second goal of the game that we touched on earlier when he absolutely rifled the puck blocker side after Edmonton couldn't clear the zone. So Leafs win 5-1. Final shot count 36-25 in favor of the Oilers. And Money Puck actually had the Oilers winning this game about 55% of the time after 500 simulations.
And I agree with those numbers because that first period, I thought Edmonton was the better team. You know, it's funny because the Leafs win 5-1. Matthews has this great game. Same with Campbell. But the first period, being in the building, I thought Edmonton was the better team. They had more quality scoring chances. And then even in the second period, I know that's when the Leafs took control of the game, but I thought Edmonton had some really good chances to score in that second period as well. And like you said, Campbell had to come up big a few times. And then in the third, obviously, the Leafs just took it home and cruised to the victory. But yeah, just hearing those numbers that Money Puck had the Oilers winning 55% of the time over 500 simulations, I think that kind of checks out.
Yeah,
I think it really does. But it just goes to show this Leaf team, man, they've just been unreal. And you go back to October 27th. I brought this up on the last few podcasts. They're the number one team in the NHL since October 27th, Lepore, with an 18-4-1 record over the last 23 games. So we've seen games where the Leafs have been in complete control from beginning to end, which is usually the case because they control the possession and the shot attempts and all that. But then there's games where, you know, they're not the best team and they still find a way to win. And I think that's really positive when you're thinking down the road in the playoffs and things like that. You want to see your team win games like that in a game where they didn't really deserve to win, but they find a way to assert their dominance and pick up a victory regardless.
Yeah, we talked about it last week if we should be concerned with their play because, again, they were winning, but getting outplayed. And, like, again, it happened again with Edmonton. But, yeah, I think there is some cause for concern because I do think things even out eventually. And I'm still, I know it sounds terrible, but I'm still kind of waiting for, like, Campbell to have, like, a really bad week or, like, a really bad stretch of 4 or 5 games. But, like, with these underlying numbers, how we talk about all the time, and it's funny how we're just talking about, like, Matthews' ability to score goals. They don't measure, like, talent on a team. Like, the simple idea that if a really good team is playing a really bad team in the way of scoring talent, they don't need as many chances to score as the weaker team. So I guess that's where the Leafs fall. And when you have a guy like Matthews who doesn't need very many chances to score 1, 2, 3 goals, well, even if you outplay them, I mean, you really have to outplay them metrically to outscore the talent. And again, it's all over the league. Like I said, like teams like Tampa, Colorado, you see it all the time. Like they win a game like this, like 5-1, 5-2, 4-1, and you go on Money Puck and they were like, they shouldn't have won based on like the deserve a win-o-meter. But again, if you're lethal, you're lethal. And if you've guys like,
I was going to say, it reminds me of that game the Leafs played against Tampa. I think it was the week before where remember the Leafs outplayed Tampa, had the better scoring chances, but then Tampa won the game 5-3.
Yeah,
I think was the final score. And you're like, wait, what? How did the Leafs lose this game? But it's like you said, man, when you're playing those top teams, they might not get a ton of chances one night, but if you give them a couple good looks with the talent they have on their roster, they're going to make you pay. And it's the same thing with the Leafs, right? If McDavid and Draisaitl are going to get all these chances and they're going to be held off the score sheet, and then you give Matthews one chance the other way, it takes one shot and that changes the entire course of the game.
Yeah, maybe Edmonton's not the best example because of McDavid and Draisaitl for what we're talking about. But yeah, you're right. And it goes the other way too of like, we talked about how the Leafs lost that game to Tampa because of how many brutal turnovers they had and mistakes. So there's that game too of just not only playing really well and taking advantage of scoring opportunities, it's about not giving the other team high danger chances. Because again, like we played Edmonton, you give McDavid and Draisaitl high danger chances on turnovers or whatever, they're going to score. They're going to kill you. But just not doing that helps your chances because, again, when you have firepower, the puck's going to go in for you more than it is for other teams quite often.
This episode of the Gluttons For Punishment podcast is brought to you by MANSCAPED. The global leaders in below-the-waist grooming are leaving 2021 with new product. Clean yourself into the new year with their ultra-premium body wash. Use the promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. 4 million men already trust Manscaped. It's time to join them. Lepore, these products are awesome.
They are awesome, Anthony Bruno. As we all know, everybody loves to put on an ugly Christmas sweater during the holiday season, but what doesn't need an ugly sweater is your balls. So take advantage of the Lawnmower 4.0, jump in the shower, use the body wash and the 2-in-1. These products smell amazing and you'll be all set for your Christmas party.
Awesome, Lepore. Whether you're getting last-minute Christmas gifts or whether you want to look and feel your best heading into the new year, Manscaped is where it's at. So once again, in order to get this offer, 20% off and free shipping, you have to use the promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code GFP20. Talking about the Oilers for a second.
Okay.
Let's get into it a little bit. And I mean, I love Oilers fans because they come at us hard.
It's the best.
And man, oh man, I feel the wrath of Oilers fans, especially through this podcast on TikTok. I'm called like the anti-Oilers guy. Like it's just Oilers fans just have it out for me, man. Like I was actually like legitimately scared watching the game at Rogers Place. I'm like, some Oilers fan is just gonna come and jump on me from behind or something like that, based on the things I've said about this team over the last couple of years. But Lepore, man, you just look at what's happened when McDavid and Draisaitl aren't at their best, when they are held off the score sheet, when those top guys are not producing. It is tough sledding for this team because after losing to the Toronto Maple Leafs, that was their 6th loss in a row.
Yeah, alarms were going off.
They have since won back-to-back games against Columbus and Seattle, but this is a team that started the season red hot. They were leading the Pacific Division for I don't know how many days it was, but they were the number 1 team in the Pacific Division for a pretty long stretch to start the season. Mm-hmm. And now looking at the Pacific Division, Vegas is in first place. And how about we base this on points percentage? Because teams have played a different amount of games. So Vegas is number 1, Calgary's number 2, Anaheim is number 3, and the Oilers are now 4th in points percentage in the Pacific Division.
Wow.
So what's your take on this team right now? Like, has anything changed from last season with this Oilers team, or is it more of the same of what we saw? It's Draisaitl and McDavid putting the team on their backs, and when those guys aren't at their best, these are the things you're going to see from Edmonton.
Yeah. I'm not like the Oilers will always have a soft spot for me because I grew up being the biggest Gretzky fan in the world, but I don't believe in Edmonton. I'll put it that way. I love McDavid. I love Draisaitl, but I just look at the lineup and I don't consider them a legitimate contender. I think they're a very good team. And they're going to win a lot of games. But when you're talking about that upper echelon group of teams that I really and truly think have a chance to win the Stanley Cup, I don't put them there. And I'll tell you why. It's because I think when it's easy to identify why a team won't win or what you have to do to stop a team, to me, that's like the alarm bell going off of like, yeah, things aren't good. Like to the point about like McDavid and Draisaitl, like easier said than done. But it's not even about like keeping them off the score sheet, just as long as they don't go bananas. It's like, you're probably going to beat them over a 7-game series.
Yeah, like hold them to like 1 or 2 point nights.
That's it.
And not like a 3 or a 4 point night.
Exactly. So there's that aspect of it. And there's also the aspect of the playoffs, the old saying, it's like they're a marathon, they're not a sprint. Could those two guys keep up a bananas pace over 4 rounds against good teams? No, it's like they're human. Like I talked about Matthews being an elite goal scorer. Well, yeah, stretches where he goes 5 games without a goal, 4 games without a goal, 1 goal in 4 games, 1 goal in 5 games. So like I just think at some point that would happen and they would hit a wall and lose. But yeah, like I said, it's the two factors. It's them having like an incredible unlikeliness to have that kind of consistency over a 4-round span, as well as it's just too easily identifiable as a thing to stop. And like to elaborate what I mean by that, like you quite often hear when teams talk about a certain team that has like an elite goalie, and they'll say, well, if so-and-so stands on his head, this team can make a run. It's like, okay, so if he doesn't, that one thing, like if he doesn't, would we even be talking about this? And that's how I feel about the Oilers. If McDavid and Draisaitl are just not super bananas elite 2-3 points a game, would we even be talking about this? No. And they are bananas players, but I just don't think it's possible for them to do that and for the team to pull that off over 3 or 4 rounds. I really don't.
I completely agree with you. At some point, these guys are human, and it's insane because you look at the numbers and they still have, both of them, 49 points in 29 games this year, which is absolutely absurd.
Mm-hmm.
But you're seeing them go through a stretch right now where the points aren't piling up. The goals aren't going in at the same rate that they were at the start of the season. Even their power play, Lepore, we did a podcast, I want to say it was about a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. The Oilers power play was operating at 50%.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
50%. Like that is insane.
It's impossible.
It's now down to around 30. Actually, funny enough, the Oilers and Leafs are now 1-2 in the NHL in power play percentage. Both of them a little bit over 30%. But when things start to regress to the mean like that, and when guys like Zach Hyman, who again, he was off to a really good start, he has slowed down. He has now 11 goals and 19 points in 26 games, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But remember at the start of the season, he was a point a game guy. Everyone's like, Hyman, oh my God, he might get 75, 80 points this season. He's going to score over 40 goals playing with Connor McDavid. I don't think that's the case anymore. And sure, could Zach Hyman hit 30 this year? Absolutely he can, especially when he's going to play with those two guys and get power play exposure to them. And then another guy I look at is even Darnell Nurse. Last season, career year, 16 goals in 56 games. He has 1 goal in 23 games this season.
Oof.
Darnell Nurse.
Oof.
So, I go up and down this lineup after you get past McDavid and Draisaitl. And listen, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 25 points in 28 games. He's been great, especially on the power play. Mm-hmm. But there's a drop off after that. And I will admit, Jesse Puljujarvi is having a nice season.
Yeah, it's good for him to see him do well.
He's actually been playing well this year, but I still think the same issues exist where there's not a lot of depth up front. Defensively, this team is not good. Goaltending wise, this team is also not very good.
Question marks, yeah. Especially
considering what Mike Smith did last season, where he had like a career year at the age of 39. Or 40, whatever he is now. So this is a team that I think has a lot of holes, Lepore. And yeah, I don't trust them against a team that knows how to play a tight defensive structure, that knows how to grind in the playoffs. If Edmonton gets matched up with one of those teams, like imagine they get matched up with Calgary in the first round. I have more faith in Calgary just based on the way that they play and knowing that they are going to play that playoff style hockey under Daryl Sutter.
Mm-hmm.
And just being one of the best defensive teams in the league. I think that's a team that could give Edmonton a ton of problems. The same with Vegas.
They have a goal, and they have a goalie too, Bruno.
Exactly. Markstrom has been unreal this year for Calgary. Even Vegas. I think Vegas would give Edmonton a lot of problems. I guess maybe their best first round matchup, if it gets to this, would be Anaheim. Like if I'm an Oilers fan, I'd be like, give me Anaheim in the first round. If they finish 2-3 in the Pacific Division, and Calgary or Vegas win the division, I think that would be ideal for the Oilers. But yeah, man, I do not have a lot of faith in that team.
Yeah, it's like to what I said before, like you mentioned how their power play was operating at 50%. So for it to drop, sounds funny, for it to drop all the way down to 30%, you have to look at the numbers. So what was their power play percentage during that time of the drop? It was terrible. It must have been like close to 0, like for them to drop at that rate. And that's what I'm referring to when I talk about the playoffs. A power play can go bananas for a round, maybe two, but over four, like you're not going to have a 30 to 50% power play in the playoffs over 4 rounds. And specifically to those guys, I think they can do a lot of damage. I think they have the ability to turn a game on its head and a series on its head, but I just don't think the rest of the team is good enough for them to go all the way. I'll say it I really don't. Like you mentioned, those teams, even in their division, I'd consider Calgary and Vegas favorites over Edmonton. I really would.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just think they're more well-rounded teams. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to me. And even, I'll even look at some of the defensive numbers right now, just in terms of, goals against per game. Calgary, number 2 in the league right now.
Okay.
2.21 goals against per game. Vegas, they got off to a rough start. They're obviously climbing up the standings right now, but that's another team. I just think defensively, I have more faith in them than the Oilers, right? And that's the thing that I always look at. You could have all the firepower in the world, especially, and I think it's because we've seen the Leafs go through this now multiple times. You could have all the firepower in the world, all the talent, but if you do not know how to keep the puck out of your own net come playoff time, you are going to have major issues. There aren't very many times over the last number of years where a team with just an amazing offensive group and a terrible defensive defense core has gone on to win the Stanley Cup.
The big one was Pittsburgh.
It was Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They had Brian Dumoulin and Ron Hainsey as their top 2 defensemen and somehow won the cup.
And then somehow won. Like some guy named, Crosby, Malkin, and Kessel, and the list went on. And the depth, but again, the depth that team had, going down was incredible. And they had a goalie too at the time, like Murray. Murray played well. So
Matt Murray was actually good.
Yeah. Ooh, slide that in, Nate Bruno. Slide that in.
A little shot to the Senators. But no, and that's the thing, right? It's like, sure, can it happen? And listen, McDavid and Draisaitl, they're the same caliber essentially as Crosby and Malkin.
Yeah,
could they go on a crazy run like that? Sure, it's possible, but I wouldn't be betting on that. Like, could it happen once every 10 years like we saw with Pittsburgh? Sure, but I'm not betting on it with this Edmonton Oilers team.
Yeah, no, me neither. I mean, I don't think much more to talk about it with it. I think we've heard Oilers fans enough.
let's move on now, Lepore. Let's talk contenders and pretenders at this point in the season.
Spicy.
And why not start things off, Lepore? I'll throw out the first team. The team that we talk about every single week, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, God.
The team we talk about every week.
I just don't want to keep beating a dead horse with the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, I could do an entire podcast by myself for 3 hours talking about the Montreal Canadiens, and maybe we will do that.
That should be a podcast. 2 Leafs fans just talking about the Montreal Canadiens for an hour every week. It would get clicks.
We'll save it for when they finish dead last in the league, Lepore. Let's hold off on that for.
You mean dead last, but still somehow get into the playoffs because whatever format we're going to use.
They're still going to be invited to the playoffs.
Well, historically, they've won a lot of cups, so I think we should put them in, and we'll just go from there. Yeah,
that would be the most Montreal Canadiens thing ever. Being invited to the playoffs 2 out of 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Because at least last year, they finished 4th, but teams played a full 56 game schedule. Whereas the year before was just a complete joke. Getting invited as the 24th seed. But anyway, we will save that for when they miss the playoffs by 35 points later this year. But Lepore, so let's start things off with the Leafs. Is this team a legitimate contender right now to not only do damage in the playoffs, but to actually win the Stanley Cup?
We're saying with a grin, eh? Like, how do we word this in a way that we know people are going to go crazy, but how crazy do we want to make people go? Yeah, I think they are. I think now more than ever, like this team has a lot of the right ingredients. And I've said previously on this show that I was being honest, and I referred back to last season where there were teams in the league that I would be pretty surprised if the Leafs beat over 7 games, like namely Tampa. So I look at it differently this year. I really do. Like, I really do think the Leafs are at least a coin flip versus any opponent in the league. And why I think it's different this year compared to previous years is because kind of like how we were just talking, the reverse of kind of like what we were just talking about with the Oilers, it's top to bottom. So it's like, can this team score? Yes. Can this team defend? While the numbers say they can, as much as people don't want to leave that take, like this team is playing better defensively. And specifically, like when was the last time, I can't remember in my life, like the Leafs having this kind of defensive depth. Like Liljegren's still got a lot of question marks. Sandin's been a pleasant surprise this year. Dermott's Dermott, but you have that top four, and then you have those guys. It's nice. Like it's a nice D. I'm not going to say it's an all-world D, but it's nice. And then the cherry on top, the Toronto Maple Leafs have a goalie right now who is playing as well as any other goalie in the world. Now, whether or not he'll keep that up for the rest of the season and bring it into the playoffs, we don't know. But if you're going to ask me right now, I mean, if you're talking about any team, if someone said to point it to any team in the league and asked me if they were a pretender or a contender, and then told me that, okay, well, this team over the last 20, whatever, some odd games is number one in the league. They've one of the best goal scorers in the National Hockey League. They've actually played the last handful of games without quite a few impact players. They have decent defensive depth and their defensive metrics are very good. And they have a goalie who very well may be the hottest in the world right now. It doesn't matter what team I was talking about. I'd say, well, it's kind of hard to call that team not a contender. I mean, people would point to like previous playoff failures, but we're talking about right now. So yes, Michael Lepore will say the Toronto Maple Leafs are a contender. I almost said pretender as like a natural reaction. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a contender.
I like it, Lepore, and I don't care how much hate comes our way. And, you might call us crazy for actually believing in this team once again. It's the same thing.
It's totally crazy, but I admit it.
Wash, rinse, repeat. Same shit year after year with this hockey team. I mean, hopefully they don't find a way to lose in the first round again. But no, I also believe that they are a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. And just looking at the odds right now, courtesy of my bookie, the Leafs are fourth in odds. So you got Colorado at number one at plus 590. Vegas number two at plus 650. It's interesting how the books have not gone away from Vegas and Colorado because they both got off to bad starts this season. But if you had looked at the betting odds over the last month, Colorado, I don't think they have moved from that top spot on the betting leaderboard right now.
They've loved Colorado for like 2-3 years in Vegas. They always seem to be at the top. And again, they deserve it. They're a really good team. Yeah. I'm just saying, like regardless of what happens, Vegas believes in Colorado. Yeah.
Vegas just doesn't care. Like they've been having those two teams right at the top all season, essentially. And then Tampa's number three at plus 730 and the Leafs are at plus 740. And it's like you said, Lepore. I mean, the Leafs are essentially a coin flip against any of the elite teams in the league in a 7-game playoff series. And I know they lost to Columbus in 5 games. They lost to the Montreal Canadiens in 7 games, blowing a 3-1 series lead. But you put this team up against any of those teams I just mentioned, even Florida for that matter, or the Carolina Hurricanes, or the Washington Capitals. You're telling me the Leafs aren't a coin flip in any of those series based on the talent that they have, based on the way that all their big guns are playing this season, and based on the way that Jack Campbell is playing in net, one of the front runners for the Vezina Trophy? You're telling me the Leafs aren't at least a coin flip against those teams? Yeah. And for the most part in the NHL playoffs, everything is a coin flip, right? More often than not, a lot of these series are a coin flip. So yeah, I think the Leafs are definitely a Stanley Cup contender. Now, I would like to see them win a damn playoff round first. Before I get super confident. We talked about this on the last show, Lepore. Like if they get matched up with Tampa in the first round, I think we'd all be terrified.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely terrifying. At this point, it does look like either Tampa or the Leafs will win the division. Florida's kind of slowed down a bit. Their goaltending hasn't been very good recently. So, ideally for the Leafs or Tampa for them, I mean, I guess Tampa doesn't really care. They'll play anyone. But if one of those teams wins the division, the other team is going to get stuck in that 2-3 matchup in the first round. And it looks like it's going to be Florida as the opponent because Boston I don't think
Weird,
Boston
eh?
has it this year.
Weird. Yeah, it's weird with Boston this year. So it's odd to see them not be dominant. And it's funny because even like I have quite a few friends who are Bruins fans. I remember even like going into last year, like they were pretty negative and down about the team. And maybe because when you're used to so much success and the team being an elite contender every year, it doesn't take much to swing it the other way. But they had to take, yeah, we're good, but like kind of like we don't really have it was kind of their take. And you kind of seeing it come out this year. And even like some of their additions haven't been the greatest. Like Foligno hasn't been good.
Oh yeah, he's been bad, Nick Foligno.
Yeah.
The Leafs dodged a bullet with the hot one.
Yeah. I don't know, but like again, like the mental thing. Would you be happy to see the Bruins in the first round this year?
I wouldn't mind playing. I'd rather play the Bruins in the first round if I'm the Leafs than the Florida Panthers.
I was gonna follow up with that question. If you had to pick between the Bruins and the Panthers, you'd pick the Bruins.
Oh yeah, give me Boston all day.
Wow, we might get killed for this one later on. Hey,
I know it's scary to say, but man, based on the way this Bruins team has been playing, they can't score, Lepore. Like this team is having trouble scoring. I'll just look at.
We mentioned Pasta before. He's not scoring at his rate.
Pasternak has not been good this season, and I pick him in the first round in fantasy hockey, and he's
first round. Oof.
Yeah, man, I took him. I figured he was going to score 45, 50 goals this year. He fills up the categories, lots of shots, and Pasternak. God, how many goals does he have right now? 8 goals in 26 games.
Shit.
For David Pasternak. And right now, Lepore, Boston, 22nd in the league in goals per game.
Wow.
So they're just not scoring goals. Defensively, they've been solid, and they've been getting good goaltending from Allmark and from Jeremy Swayman. But that's a team depth-wise, especially on offense, like with Pasternak and Marchand, with Bergeron and Marchand out in the COVID protocol, like that team is hopeless.
Yeah, they're in a lot of trouble
in terms of scoring goals. Like they can't score. So yeah, that's a team right now. I don't view them in that same tier, Lepore, as some of the other teams, especially in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, I mean, so Florida. It's not going to happen. But if Florida played Boston in the first round, it's like you'd take the traditional gut stuff out and you'd be betting on Florida.
I'd be betting on Florida in that case, definitely.
Okay. Well, let's go deeper into this then. So talked about mentioned the Leafs to you, and we listed the teams that are the MyBookie favorites to win the whole thing. Who do you think is the favorite right now to win the Stanley Cup?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So
like how I always say, the briefcase of $1 million, you get it if you get the right answer. Who would you pick?
There's 2 teams. So I really
the Leafs and
it's just the Leafs. The Leafs are a lock. Bet your house, bet all your money on the Leafs to win the cup. Please don't do that, and please gamble responsibly.
Please gamble responsibly. And when we say that, don't bet on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, if you want to protect your money, invest in anything but the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, comic books,
the best
whatever.
Piece of advice we can give on this podcast. But no, in all seriousness, Lepore, a team that I really like, and I've been on this team all year, is Carolina.
Oh,
good one. I really, really like Carolina. I think across the board, they are an excellent team in terms of offense, defense, goaltending. And I know they have Freddie Anderson, and he's prone to some bad games in the playoffs. I get that. But I really like this Carolina Hurricanes team, and I think depth-wise, they're excellent. Now, Freddie Anderson does scare me a bit, but I think they are a very, very legit contender to win the Stanley Cup. And right now, their odds on MyBookie, they're 6th. So Leafs are 4th, Panthers are 5th, and the Hurricanes are 6th at plus 1075. So almost 11-1 to win the Stanley Cup. So I would say that Hurricanes team in the East, and I know Tampa, back-to-back champs and all that, they're in the mix too. But then in the West, I keep going back to the well with this team, Lepore. It's the Colorado Avalanche.
Okay.
And I know they've been the favorite to win the Stanley Cup all season in terms of the books, but I just love that team, man.
Colorado has that feeling, and you get this a lot, like in the history of hockey, that like they have to do it eventually, don't they? Like you kind of have that feeling of like at some point,
talent.
Yeah, at some point they're just gonna do it. Like they're gonna go over the hump. I mean, the only one that comes to mind as an exception would be the San Jose Sharks, like those elite Sharks teams where they made a final, but you were kind of like, yeah, San Jose will get one, like those Thornton, Marlowe, San Jose Sharks teams, Pavelski, and they never did it. But yeah, like Colorado has that feeling. Like they're the team in the NHL right now that's like that next team that we could see dominate and win a cup or cups for that matter.
Yeah, they're just so good, so talented, so fast. They got talent across the board. So yeah, that's a team that I always have confidence in. And I thought they were going to win the Stanley Cup last season. I know they lost to Vegas in the second round, who then somehow lost to the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games. But no, I'm always on the Colorado Avalanche with the talent that they have. So I think those are the two, I would say, front runners for me.
Mm.
How do you feel about that? Is there another team we haven't mentioned here that you think has a legit chance to go all the way?
Yeah, like I'll do the same thing as you. Like I'll pick one in the East, I'll pick one in the West. One I don't think is too hot of a take. One I think is kind of going sort of off the board. I'd like to see their betting odds for that matter too. But first, I will say the Washington Capitals. Kind of like what I touched on before about how hockey kind of works in different ways than other sports. And to me, there's that little thing of like, I think Ovechkin will win another cup, just like for the story of Alex Ovechkin. I think he'll win another Stanley Cup. That team is firing on all cylinders. They're near the top of the standings. And I think kind of like the under talked about topic of the year so far is how well that team's been playing. And TJ Oshie has only played 14 games of like, I think they've played 30 games total. He's only played 14 games and Backstrom's only played 1. So for this team to sit at the record they currently sit at of 18-6-7, having to deal with that's pretty friggin' impressive. And then you throw in that Alexander Ovechkin has come out like an absolute train this year and just seems like he is an absolute freak, but it just seems like he's gone full blown this year. Seems very motivated. So in the East, I'll pick Washington.
I like it.
In the West, and this is the one I was referring to where I'd like to see their odds. I'm going to go a little off the board here. You know how much I love them, Bruno. I'm going to say the Minnesota Wild.
I knew you were going here.
You knew I was going there. Bring the cup back to Hockey USA, Minnesota. I just made Red Wings fans really mad. But yeah, I think they're a team. There's that old thing in hockey when you watch games and you watch certain teams and there's certain styles that you just feel will work in the playoffs. And let's say it's heavy hockey. It's heavy hockey. Teams come at you in waves. They attack you. You get it out. They attack you again, and it keeps happening. And they remind me of that. And like we touched on the Oilers earlier in the show. And like I'll say it, like the Leafs, for example, in previous years, like even those early Babcock years when they were scoring a lot of goals and fun to watch and silky and smooth and fun. And I sound like a dinosaur here, but that style is not going to win over 4 rounds. And for that reason, I never really did in my heart believe like those teams could go all the way. But I look at this Minnesota team, man, and they have a lot of different styles. They have a lot of characters on that team. They win in different ways. And again, that balance in that heavy play, I think they have a shot. Like I know I'm going like kind of off the board here, but I like them, man. I like them. I think that team's built the right way. They've been getting decent goaltending from Talbot. Let's do it, man. The Minnesota Wild. But have you been able to pull up their odds?
Yeah, so I got their odds right here in Lepore. I don't think it's a hot take at all. I think they've been excellent this season. And the big thing with Minnesota is that they're scoring goals now. That's a team that has historically been known as like, you know, a tight defensive team that wins games 2-1, but they're second in the league right now in goals per game behind Colorado.
Oh, I don't even know that. Wow.
So that's impressive. And their odds, Lepore. So I ended off my last little rant saying that Carolina was 6th in the odds. Minnesota right behind them, 7th.
Okay.
They're plus 1225 to win the Stanley Cup, according to my bookie. So they are 7th on the leaderboard right now in betting odds to win the Stanley Cup.
Oh, here I thought I was being all like clever and smart, picking a team off the board, and no, they seem to be like pretty decently ranked on the Vegas boards. But like to the point about the type of team they have and the balance, like listen to this, Bruno. So we talk about like Matthews having 20 goals and Draisaitl and Ovechkin scoring on all cylinders. So here's Minnesota sitting where they sit in the standings. Kirill Kaprizov, 11 goals. Hartman, 13 goals. Zuccarello, 8 goals. Eriksson Ek, 11 goals. Foligno, 13 goals. That team is balanced, man.
That's like a balanced team.
That's balanced scoring, man. Like to be, you said they're second in goals in the NHL, and to not have a guy who's got like 20 or like two guys at 20. That's
impressive.
It's very impressive. Very impressive. So I like them a lot, man. Go wild. Go wild. And really too, like we all love the story of like the Minnesota North Stars. So wouldn't it be great for those fans who lost a team and who I think had, and I might get a war might start over this one, but who I think very well may have had the nicest jerseys in the history of the National Hockey League, the Minnesota North Stars. For those fans who have lost their team, get a team back, win a Stanley Cup, I'll be rooting for them. I'll be rooting for that story 100%.
I love it, Lepore. I'm also a big fan of those North Star jerseys.
It's the best, man.
And listen, when Lepore is saying a jersey is one of the best jerseys in NHL history, take him seriously, because this dude, I mean, if there's anyone who knows jerseys, if there's a jersey snob out there, Michael Lepore is he's number one on the list, man, especially in my books. So I take that seriously, Lepore.
Okay,
when you're speaking that highly of the North Star jersey. So
yeah. If there's no hockey, we may have to find some topics to talk about. Maybe we'll do like an all-time jersey ranking show or something fun like that to fill some airtime.
And just to the other team you brought up there, Lepore, Washington, they're actually right behind Minnesota in the odds as well. So they're 8th at plus 1325. So a little over 13-1. So
to me, that's a bet, man. 13 times your money on the Washington Capitals. And like I said, no Backstrom and no Oshie. Like crazy. Yeah, that's the bet to me.
That's crazy impressive. I guess the two teams you can compare in that sense are Washington and Tampa, because Tampa's basically been without Braden Point for almost half the season. Nikita Kucherov has been injured again. So, and to see what Tampa's been doing without those two guys, and like you said, Lepore, to see what Washington has done without Backstrom and without Oshie for half the season, that's insane, man.
Bananas,
and Ovechkin is, like you said, he's been unbelievable this year, but I'm right there with you, man. I think both of those teams, if you're going to put a bet, sprinkle a little money, Minnesota and Washington, those are looking like very, very strong plays at this point.
Oh, thanks, Bruno. Some compliments from Sportsnet's Anthony Bruno. I feel very good about myself.
Anthony Bruno. I love
you're getting coffee for people, right? We didn't tell people, but that's your job there.
Yeah. Oh, I love it, Lepore. All right, man. Yeah, let's move on now. We don't have too much time left in this show, but I want to talk a little bit about Hart Trophy, Vezina Trophy, and Coach of the Year.
Okay, we'll do those ones.
So we won't get too in depth, but start things off with the Hart Trophy, Lepore. Is it just Connor McDavid's to lose?
Yes. I'll say it. I think his points total by the end of the season is going to be so much further ahead than anyone else. The Oilers are going to make the playoffs. So to me, it's that whole thing. Like once in a while you see in hockey or even sports altogether for that matter, where people try to be cute with like, oh, this guy's the best, or like they debate over the actual definition of the award. Is it the best player? Is it the player who's most valuable to their team? Like what's hilarious is, like, figure this one out. Michael Jordan in his NBA career only won 5 league MVPs. Like,
it's crazy.
How? Because every year they'd be like, oh, this year David Robinson had a great year, we'll give it to him. Or I think Charles Barkley got one. I think maybe Clyde Drexler got one. And great players, great historical players. But to think over Jordan's entire career, he only got 5. It's because, again, people were trying to be cute. And it happens in hockey too. But I just think Connor McDavid is on... He's on another stratosphere. He's on another stratosphere. Like how I said before that I feel Austin Matthews may be the best post-lockout goal scorer I've seen and be on the list for the best goal scorers I've seen. If someone said to me, McDavid is the best player I've ever seen, I wouldn't argue with them. Like I really wouldn't. Like there's the players to me, and the biggest thing that jumps out about like crazy talented players is when they do things that when you watch them on their own, they don't appear to be very difficult, but they just do it all the time and it seems to work all the time. And it always seems to like accomplish its goal by the way of like beating the guy one-on-one or scoring a crazy goal. So like, I'm almost more impressed with that like when I'm watching him, like, yeah, I know he's crazy fast and his talent's amazing, but he's just everywhere and you can't even really explain why. Whereas like certain players, like, okay, like he pulled a crazy move or this or that, but with McDavid, yeah, like he's faster than everybody else. But I think it just runs deeper than that. Like, I think it's about his brain. I think like an underrated thing about Connor McDavid is is in between the ears and how he plays and how he computes things. And however you want to describe what, like how good he is or why he's so good, it doesn't matter. The guy's the best player in the world. He deserves the Hart Trophy. And like barring an injury, I can't see it going to anyone else. I really can't.
He's straight up the greatest player I've ever seen.
Oh, there you go.
I'm just going to say it. And, I know you're a huge Wayne Gretzky guy, and there's a lot of Mario Lemieux fans and Bobby Orr fans, but just in terms of pure talent, what this guy does on the ice, the way that he's able to operate at top speed at all times, it's like he's just playing a different game out there. He's insane. And I think barring an injury, really, I think Connor McDavid is going to win the Hart Trophy.
Yeah.
I think you can just lock it in. I would be a little bit interested in an Austin Matthews or an Alexander Ovechkin bet on the Hart Trophy, because if Ovechkin keeps this up and Washington, wins the Metropolitan Division, and the same thing with the Leafs. If the Leafs win the Atlantic, if Matthews wins the Rocket Richard, then he's going to get a ton of Hart Trophy votes. And he finished second in Hart Trophy voting last season to Connor McDavid. So I think it might be worth a sprinkle on Matthews and Alexander Ovechkin. But I think we're both in agreement that unless McDavid gets abducted by aliens, unless he gets injured, then he's probably going to win the Hart Trophy once again.
Yeah, I think it would take something like, for as far as they're going to be, as far as he's going to be in points, I think it would take something really historic on the part of Matthews or Ovechkin. It would take like 60 or 65. Yeah. So
how about the Vezina Trophy, Lepore?
Oh,
and really, I mean, the main question I have is, could Jack Campbell win the Vezina? Because right now, looking at mybookie.ag, he is second behind Andrei Vasilevsky at plus 790 to win the Vezina. Vasilevsky is at plus 560 at this point. Campbell's second, and then Igor Shesterkin of the Rangers is at plus 850. And just looking at goalie stats right now in the National Hockey League, where is Mr. Jack Campbell in terms of save percentage? So among starting goalies, Campbell and Igor Shesterkin are 1-2 in the league with a .937 save percentage.
Okay.
And then in terms of goals against average, Tristan Jarry is number one. Cool. Freddie Anderson is number two. And then Campbell and Jacob Markstrom are right behind them in third among starters. And then even if you want to look at wins, Anderson and Vasilevsky both have 16 wins. Jack Campbell is in a four-way tie for second with 15 wins. So do you think a Leaf goaltender, Michael Lepore, can actually win the Vezina Trophy this season?
The fact that we are having this discussion, Anthony Bruno, I have to ask the question of what planet we're on, because I could have dreamt of this in a million years. Little side note before I go into my rant. Before the season started, Jeff Merrick picked Shesterkin to win the Vezina. Not bad, eh? Not bad
at all. Yeah, that's looking very good right now.
Yeah, but Campbell, I wouldn't bet on him. Like I'll say it. I wouldn't bet on him because I'll use like confirmation bias that like I don't know if he can have like this crazy of a year over that long of a stretch. I think he's proven that he's the legit number one goalie in the National Hockey League, but I'm going to bet on what I know, and I'm not going to put him on the same page as Vasilevsky. We've said previously on this show that Vasilevsky's getting into that category of like the greatest goalies of all time. And if I have to bet on him or Campbell to keep their paces up for the entire season and to win the award, and for whoever's going to win the award, like I have to go with Vasilevsky. Like I really do. And like we talk about how I mentioned before, how like sometimes people get cute with who they vote for. I mean, with goalies, at the end of the day, it's about numbers. It's like you said, save percentage, GAA, wins. Like, so you can't really get cute with that one. It's more of a black and white award. So for that reason as well, like I could see the whole take of, Campbell playing for the Leafs and all the Leafs writers, or who votes for the Vezina? Is that a journalism one, or is it like
I
GM
think
one?
it's the writers. I could be wrong because I know some of the awards it's voted on by like the GMs and the coaches and that stuff.
Yeah, but people might say if it is a journalist, it's like Toronto bias. But the Vezina is a black and white award, man. Who stops the puck the most and who has the best numbers for the most part. So like I'd have to go Vasilevsky. Does Campbell have a chance? Yeah, of course he's got a chance. But if I'm being honest with myself, and as difficult as it is for me to say because I love Jack, I can't see it happening. I can't see him being at the top of the podium at the end of the season.
That's totally fair. Another stat I want to bring your way, Michael Lepore, is goals saved above expected.
Of course.
Via moneypuck.com. So this is getting a little deeper into the goalie statistics, going a little deeper than save percentage and GAA. Jack Campbell leads the NHL with 17.4 goals saved above expected.
Okay.
Pretty impressive. But when you look at goals saved above expected per 60 minutes, he is behind. Actually, you won't believe this. Jonathan Quick, according to moneypuck.com, is number 1 in goals saved above expected per 60. Igor Shesterkin is number 2. And then Jack Campbell's number 3. So either way you slice it up, Jack Campbell, when you look at the underlying numbers as well, you look at some of the advanced stats, he's right up there. So I'm going to say, Lepore, I'm going to disagree with you and say that one of Campbell or Shesterkin is going to win the Vezina Trophy.
I like it.
As great as Andrei Vasilevsky is, and he's been awesome, essentially carrying that team this season with no Point, no Kucherov. There's been a couple other injuries. Even Cirelli's missed a few games, but he's been the steady force for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And not to take anything away from Stamkos and Hedman, who are having good seasons, but Vasilevsky, that dude's a monster. But I'm going to go with either Campbell or Shesterkin. One of them will win the Vezina Trophy.
Okay. Well, to help my argument, Bruno, I looked it up, and it is the general managers who vote on the Vezina. Okay. So you remove the Toronto bias that we just deny exists in all media. Like, I mean, come on, like it's not the case at all in any realm. But yeah, it's voted by the GM. So if anyone's out there screaming that Campbell has a chance because of a Toronto writer's bias, doesn't matter because it's voted by the GMs.
Well, now knowing that it's the GMs, I feel like Campbell almost has a 0% chance of winning the Vezina
because
Trophy.
Of the hatred for the Leafs. Like it goes
screw the Leafs.
Screw the Leafs.
We don't want Campbell to win the Vezina.
Or they're gonna all try to fuck the Leafs and give it to him, so he asks for $1 billion when it comes at the negotiation
that's
table.
The 4D chess move right there.
You know what's funny? Like how I say my biggest nightmare is the Leafs winning the President's Trophy. I remember saying like years ago that I didn't want when Riley came 4th for the Norris. I remember saying like, guys, like we don't want Morgan Riley to win a Norris Trophy before his season's up, or his contract's up, I should say. And I guess Leafs fans, to be fair, I mean, we want Jack to be great, but we should probably at the same time, it sounds stupid, but it's the reality. We should probably be hoping that he doesn't win a Vezina Trophy.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair because I can't even imagine what his contract. I mean, even if he doesn't win the Vezina Trophy, his contract is probably still going to be more than people would like. But man, if he wins the Vezina and he walks into that negotiating room and says, "Man, I just won the Vezina Trophy. I'm the best goalie in the NHL. I want $6-7 million a year minimum."
What are you gonna say?
And then the Leafs are screwed, Lepore.
I'd like to look it up, like in the history of hockey, how often the Vezina Trophy winner and even like Vezina Trophy nominees for that matter have been free agents.
That would be a great stat to look up because I cannot think of a single goalie off the top of my head.
Like it's all franchise goalies, right? Typically guys who are
they're all locked in, long-term contracts. Yeah, this is a very rare situation right now, what's going on with Jack Campbell.
Mm.
Lepore, before we end the podcast, let's do a quick chat on the coach of the year.
Okay.
So before I even give you any of the odds, is there a specific coach that you would take to win coach of the year at this point?
Coaching's a hard one because like usually what happens with the Jack Adams is it's given to a coach of a team who either everyone thought was going to be really bad and that team made the playoffs, or a team that the coach of a team who people thought was going to be maybe okay and they finished near the top of the standings. And just like thinking quickly, I don't think we really have any of those this year. And to be fair, like, I remember like Elliot Friedman was talking about the standings almost now more than ever, or in his memory anyway. The league is very, very top heavy, and there's a lot of teams with bad records at the bottom. But to talk about the Norris Trophy, when there isn't a case like that, I think they sometimes give it away as like a lifetime achievement award. And for a lot of these awards, I don't have a problem with that because like let's face it, like they are subjective, like they're debates, they're not the Art Ross. So like the Norris Trophy, people always go crazy with, or they very often go crazy with who wins it. It's like, oh, it was a lifetime achievement award, or this wasn't his best year, this guy was better. But at the end of the day, like these awards are subjective. So if I had to bet on someone, I will say, and I would say like it's a surprise, but I guess not really a surprise. I will say that John Cooper gets it.
Yeah, I'm locking in John Cooper as well.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Just looking at the odds.
Bruno, I thought I was coming out of left field being smart, and I'm not.
No, I think it's actually insane right now because he is sixth in terms of the betting odds to win the Jack Adams on mybookie.ag. He is 9-1. Peter Laviolette, number one.
Okay.
Head coach of the Washington Capitals. Sometimes you lose track of who Peter Laviolette is actually the coach of these days, but yes, he is indeed the coach of the Capitals right now, obviously having a great season. Going down the list here, Daryl Sutter, number two.
Sutter could be one. That's an interesting one. Yeah.
Rod Brindamore. Then we have Dean Evison, head coach of the Minnesota Wild, number 4. Gerard Gallant at number 5, and John Cooper at number 6. And we talked about it on this podcast. Point has missed essentially half the season. Kucherov is going through another significant injury, and that team is just humming along. First place in the Atlantic Division. It doesn't matter who's playing every night. They have the second best record in the NHL right now at 19-6-4. Carolina's number 1. Tampa, number 2 at 19-6-4.
Okay.
I'm locking in John Cooper for the Jack Adams.
Okay. I mean, it kind of sounds funny for me to say that, like, yeah, I was like throwing one out there with the guy who's won back-to-back Stanley Cups. But like I said, like typically who the award goes to is not just a guy who coaches a really good team. So it's kind of where I was going with that. But Cooper, I've seen interviews with him. Seems like a good dude. He's coached all levels. Like I think he started like high school hockey and like within a few years just moved up and up and up. And he was in the AHL, and then the opportunity came up with Tampa and he took it, and he's been great. So I'd have no problem with him getting the award. And
just based on my quick research right now, Lepore, John Cooper has never won the Jack Adams Award.
No, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of why I said it too, in the way that's like a lifetime achievement.
I figured maybe he had one.
Like from early on,
Tampa's had like the best record in the NHL over the last like 7-8 seasons.
Yeah.
Just in terms of cumulative record, especially since Cooper's been there. But yeah, he has never won the Jack Adams. So yeah, let's start it right now. John Cooper for the Jack Adams. And
I like that bet, man. It was 7-1, 8-1,
9-1.
9-1. There you go. No brainer.
And Sheldon Keefe, I should mention, is 8th on this list right now, a shade over 10-1. He's plus 1075 to win the Jack Adams. For those who think that he has a chance as well, because hey, maybe the Leafs win the President's Trophy, Lepore, which you hate. You never want your favorite team to win the President's Trophy, but
no, Bruno.
Keefe might be in play. But yeah, no, I think we're both going to lock in John Cooper. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
I can't say there is. I'm just really hoping that we get some hockey, man. I mean, sports fans have been through the shitter the last couple of years with what's happened. Something we love, something that's a distraction from like the troubles of life, has been taken away. And I mean, it's come back and been removed, come back and been removed. And it looked like we were on a good path. We had an NHL season that was slated to be an 82-game season, a regular schedule, and that's kind of up in the air right now. So just sitting here and praying at night that we at least get something that somewhat resembles a real and true NHL season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, man. I just want things to go back to normal. Like, for the love of God, just please go back to normal. The Leafs are not slated to play a game until Monday, December 27th.
Okay.
So until then, to all our listeners out there,
what are you guys doing at night? Comment down below.
I would love to
should have
know
been on.
how you're keeping yourself entertained over the holidays with a lack of hockey games going on. Yeah. But no, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff to all the listeners out there, all the supporters of the GFP podcast. You guys are awesome. You mean a lot to us. And I mean, we hope you have a fantastic holiday season with your families. And we're looking forward to continuing the podcast in the new year and for years to come. Right, Lepore?
Yeah, never stops, man. We're what episode? I say 46. Well, we're gonna be at season 46 before we know it.
Love it, man. Love it, man. We're gonna keep this thing going. But that is going to do it for episode 46 of the Gluttons for Punishment podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast, hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener, this is huge, and not enough of you are doing this. Please go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and review. It would mean the world. And then also, if you're watching us on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.